Hello, and have we got some news for you today in this crypto update? First of all, we got to tell something about the general economy. The United States has been downgraded by Moody's. Now, this is not the first time I've heard of a US downgrade. And generally, they always cite debt as a reason, but they usually downgrade the United States outlook if we are politically unstable, which unfortunately, we are heading towards another lockdown. That's why they're downgrading us. That's the real reason they're downgrading us, because we can't really get a CR passed and we can't really agree to the funding. And so we are actually heading towards another lockdown. I don't know how long this lockdown is going to last. They usually do something at the 11th hour and then come up with some kind of continuing resolution funding or some funding measure. But this time it might be a little bit harder because the Democrats are not willing to basically concede to the Republicans' demands. And since the GOP controls the House, they do have the power to shut the government down and not pass a funding resolution unless their demands are met. And even if they passed a funding resolution, I do believe they would still downgrade us because we've been playing like chicken with each other for too long, basically. See, Moody's and other credit ratings don't like it when the U.S. basically threatens to default and goes to the 11th hour without making a decision because it brings uncertainty, and uncertainty invites a downgrade in ratings. So basically, like, how a functional government works is they pass one of these budget resolutions quite a bit before the deadline, because if they don't pass one by the deadline, then like non-critical sectors of the government shut off, a lot of people don't get paid. And of course, if you don't really pay your obligations, your credit rating sinks. And we've been running it to the 11th hour for many, many times in a row. So Moody's has decided to downgrade the United States. I don't think it's a big deal. I think the first time it happened, it was a big deal. But since it's not the first time this has happened, I think people are getting more and more used to this, which says something about the United States. But I do think people do believe eventually we are going to pay our obligations. And I do think there's a lot of people that do believe that we are going to come up with something at 11:59 on that day, just like we did last time. Like I said, this time it might be harder because we have Mike Johnson instead of Mike McCarthy, and Johnson is more with a MAGA faction, which is less willing to compromise on whatever their demands are. The thing is, even if we get a CR like this, it'd be very, very hard to pass the Senate and get Joe Biden's signature if you have a bunch of cuts. In fact, I think a lot of the Republicans in the Senate probably wouldn't even vote for it either. So finding a compromise this time is going to be significantly harder. They can do a continuing resolution to temporarily keep the government open, but even what that continuing resolution is kind of undecided at this particular point. And I just don't see too much of a compromise between Hakeem Jeffries and also with Mike Johnson, and also something that Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell would agree to, and something that President Joe Biden would sign. So we might be shut down for a week or two. I really hope not, though, and I really hope they pass a stopgap measure before this all happens. So the other thing is BlackRock has fired shots at the SEC, and this is about their Ethereum ETF. So basically, if you didn't know, BlackRock registered a trust in Delaware, and soon afterwards, they filed with the SEC for an Ethereum spot ETF. Now, here's the thing. There's already an Ethereum futures ETF, which the SEC did approve. The thing is, since the Bitcoin ETF, the court in the Grayscale case, has already said that the SEC can't just deny the ETF for arbitrary reasons, and they specifically cited that since the spot ETF and the futures ETF are the same thing 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, that they couldn't just find any crap reason to deny the futures ETF. And the SEC obviously doesn't like this, but they had to open dialogue with Grayscale in order to talk to them about converting their GBTC into an ETF. So I think the SEC is going to throw in the towel and finally approve a Bitcoin ETF. And BlackRock, following Grayscale, has also filed an Ethereum spot ETF. And the SEC, based on the continuing logic from their last decision, would not be able to deny Ethereum ETF. They're going to try to delay it. So I think by Q3 of next year, we will have an Ethereum ETF because they filed it just today, and there's generally 240 days until the SEC has to make a decision on the ETF, which would put it roughly in Q3 somewhere. By September, I think we should actually have one. And that's very good. And actually, it should be like by August because they filed it like mid-November, so it should be kind of like mid-August until we get one. The SEC is going to squirm out of it because they're under Gary Gensler still, but I do not think they can squirm out of this one. If they decide to say no and BlackRock sues them, which I'm pretty sure BlackRock will, and trust me, BlackRock has plenty of money to sue the SEC with, I do think the judges will follow the Bitcoin precedent set by the Grayscale case and rule the exact same way, and it would just be another embarrassing loss by the SEC, and it would give his opponents more ammo. And at that time, they really don't want that to happen because it will be really, really close to elections. The SEC losing another case next to elections would be pretty devastating to Gary Gensler and any chances of him actually reclaiming the head SEC spot. Now, like I said, his reputation's already pretty shot, but it would be shot even further if that happened. And it would actually make the president in the Democratic Party, which he's a part of, very, very unhappy because it would actually make them look even worse when it comes to crypto. And crypto, I do think, is getting to be a bigger and bigger issue in the thick of politics, especially as the election is going to be very, very close. So BlackRock has fired some shots. They filed like the argument. Jake Chervinsky and others have actually looked at the argument, and they say it's a really good argument, and it's one that the SEC cannot win. Remember, the SEC has generally pursued a lot of cases against smaller crypto companies that could not defend themselves, or they're just picking low-hanging fruit, like Hex or something. But even with the Terra Luna case, which I would consider low-hanging fruit, it actually really looks like they're going to lose that case. So like with this not low-hanging fruit, like with the big players like BlackRock that already has a precedent in its favor, I really don't think the SEC has any real chance of winning this lawsuit. And so the SEC is going to pile up those L's, and they're going to have to approve the Ethereum ETF. Now, if you think they're going to approve other ETFs, I don't think they're really going to file them because there are no futures ETFs of those other coins, at least not within the United States. And I don't think there's enough demand. I do think they'll pile them all together and make like a large cap ETF, but that's going to be in the future. And I think that's going to be 2025 and beyond. So if you're hoping for that, then you probably have a while to wait. But Bitcoin Ethereum's futures ETF, I think, is going to be guaranteed next year, and BlackRock has fired shots across the bow at the SEC. It looks like Gary Gensler has not been listening to the cabal all that much, and the cabal is angry, so he better watch out, or the cabal will politically pwn him, because they can. Also, USDC seems to have deep ties with Tron. Now, I don't really know why that's so bad. They're kind of claiming it's a scam. And since it's Justin Sun involved, maybe. It's really the ethics committee that has actually brought this up. And they obviously ran to Senators Elizabeth Warren and Sherrod Brown, the enemies of crypto, because they want to clamp down on crypto. They are concerned and surprised that USDC had deep connections with Wall Street. I don't think any of us are surprised that USDC has deep connections with Wall Street. I think every one of us knew that it had deep connections with Wall Street. I mean, they're literally partnered with Goldman Sachs. I don't think that's really a surprise to anyone, but their connections to Tron are quite interesting. We know that Tron is connected to USDT, but I didn't actually know it was connected to USDC. So that is quite surprising, and that's a piece of information that I think will be interesting to many of you. And of course, Tron does, I believe USDC does actually run through Tron. And there was actually a letter obviously aimed with like BS excuses about crypto admitting helping terrorism, and the possibility of $400 million worth of USDC in the Tron ecosystem. But, I mean, just because it's the Tron ecosystem does not mean it's going to Hamas or Hezbollah. I think that's complete BS. They're trying to inflate these numbers again and get something like the Wall Street Journal to pick it up to enrage people. But I don't think this time is going to work quite as well, because we kind of established that there was only $400,000 of maybe terrorist money in all those crypto transactions. Maybe Cynthia Loomis and all those crypto senators will actually wake up. So they said, like, recently published studies and reports of law enforcement operations indicate a prominent US-based cryptocurrency company backed by major Wall Street investments houses Circle may be directly or indirectly compromised by its integration with Asia-based network of trading platforms. So it's maybe directly or indirectly. I don't think they have much proof. I don't really know what Elizabeth Warren and Sherrod Brown is going to do with this. They're probably going to drum up some PR, but I think they're just drumming up negative PR for their party in terms of crypto, so they need to back off. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you, and have a nice day.